My fiancée demanded I gift her parents a share of my business before our wedding. When I refused, she threatened to leave me. So I did this. Now she's begging. I'm 33, and honestly, I'm proud of what I've built with my tech consulting firm, which I started from scratch. No rich family connections, no breaks, just me, a laptop, and way too many sleepless nights. I sacrificed a lot along the way. Skipped vacations, barely ate twice in a day, and kissed work-life balance goodbye. You could say I had no social life. So yeah, this business means a lot to me. About a year ago, I met Jenna. She's 29, and at first, she seemed perfect. Ambitious, confident, and with this kind of energy that made people want to be around her. She knew how to carry herself, how to light up a room, and honestly, I admired that about her. We started dating, and things were amazing for a while. I really thought I'd found someone who understood my drive. Fast forward a year, and we got engaged. I kept it simple, a nice dinner and a quiet moment where I asked her to marry me. She said yes, and for a while, it felt like I was living a dream. Jenna took over the wedding planning, and she was great at handling all preparations. I just went along with it, happy she was in her element. One evening, about 3 months before the wedding, Jenna brought up her parents in a way that immediately raised my suspicions. At first, I thought she was hinting at something small, a thoughtful gift or a simple gesture of appreciation. After all, we'd recently taken them on a weekend trip to Napa, and I'd even bought her dad an expensive watch he had his eye on. But as she leaned across the table, I realized she had something bigger in mind. She suggested I give her parents a stake in my business. For a moment, I thought I had misheard her. A stake in my company? The idea was so audacious I had to pause to process it. She clarified, saying it didn't have to be a big stake, just something symbolic to show gratitude and include them in something successful. I was stunned. The company was my creation, built from nothing but sheer determination and sacrifice. Her parents had no part in its inception, no investment, no late nights or personal struggles. Yet here she was, acting as though this was a reasonable request. She framed it as a way to show respect and trust, emphasizing that her family would soon be mine. To her, this wasn't just a business decision, it was about building connections. But to me, it was my livelihood, something I had poured my heart into for years. When I tried to explain the weight of what she was asking, Jenna dismissed my concerns as overthinking. She said it was purely symbolic and wouldn't impact the business. But it wasn't symbolic to me. It was legal. Serious. And entirely unwarranted. Her tone shifted as she grew frustrated, accusing me of not valuing her family's role in her life. She argued that without them, she wouldn't be here, implying that I owed them something because of her existence. I couldn't believe it. Respect and appreciation didn't mean handing over a part of something I had built through my own sweat and sacrifice. The sheer entitlement in her request left me questioning how well she truly understood or valued the work I had put into creating my company. The conversation ended that night, but the unease lingered. Lying in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that Jenna's entitled request wasn't just a one-off, it felt like the start of a bigger issue. Looking back, her suggestion didn't come out of nowhere. Jenna had always leaned toward extravagance, having grown up without worrying about money. What I once saw as a quirk now felt like a red flag, especially when it involved my business, something I'd poured years of effort into. The next morning, I hoped it was a lapse in judgment, something she'd reconsider with a clear head, but Jenna brought it up again, and I immediately knew we were heading into a replay of the conversation I hoped had ended the night before. She framed it as a matter of appreciation for her parents, insisting that giving them a stake in my company would show them the value I supposedly placed on them. I tried to explain, calmly, why it was unrealistic. Business shares weren't symbolic gestures, they were legal commitments with real financial implications. Besides, her parents didn't have the expertise to contribute meaningfully. She dismissed my concerns, arguing it wasn't about involvement but about gratitude and inclusion. Later, she shifted tactics. She suggested that her parents' connections could benefit the company, claiming it was about our future. The shift didn't sit right with me, it felt manipulative. I reiterated that my business had thrived without external interference and that support for our future didn't involve gifting away pieces of it to others. Her insistence turned to frustration, and the calculating look in her eyes left me uneasy. It was no longer just a conversation about gratitude, it felt like a deeper issue of entitlement. By the following day, the situation escalated in ways I couldn't have anticipated. Jenna had taken the situation to a new level by involving her mom, who called me at work. Her overly cheerful tone immediately set me on edge as she thanked me for my thoughtful idea to give them a stake in my business. Shocked, I clarified that no such decision had been made, firmly stating I wasn't comfortable with the notion. The conversation ended awkwardly, leaving me furious. When I confronted Jenna later, she admitted to pitching the idea to her parents, claiming it was to help me understand how much it would mean to them. She dismissed my frustration, calling it an overreaction and accusing me of not caring enough about her family. As the argument escalated, she even implied that my refusal showed a lack of commitment to our relationship. The tension peaked when Jenna issued an ultimatum: give her parents the business shares or risk ending the relationship. Her bluntness stunned me, but I stood firm, refusing to compromise my principles. Her response was equally resolute. She walked out, leaving the relationship hanging by a thread. That night, I realized this wasn't just a disagreement. It was a defining moment for our relationship, exposing irreconcilable values. As the weight of it sank in, I understood that no matter what came next, the dynamic between us had irreversibly shifted. Olivia, a trusted friend and lawyer, was my next call. She quickly invited me to her office to talk. When I explained the situation, Jenna's demands, her mother's involvement, the ultimatum, Olivia's was shocked. She didn't mince words. Jenna's actions were a glaring red flag, and agreeing to her demands could have devastating legal and financial consequences. Olivia outlined the risks of transferring business shares, emphasizing the potential loss of control, complications in case of marital issues, and the entitlement behind Jenna's behavior. She urged me to protect my business and set firm boundaries. Her advice was clear: Jenna needed to understand that this wasn't up for discussion. With Olivia's words ringing in my ears, I confronted Jenna that evening. Calm but resolute, I reiterated my refusal to give her parents a stake in my company. Her response was as expected: anger, accusations, and threats to end the relationship. When she declared we shouldn't get married if I couldn't comply, I agreed. Jenna was stunned, but I stood firm, unwilling to compromise my principles or future for her unreasonable demands. The following days were chaotic. Jenna bombarded me with calls, switching between anger and apologies. Eventually, I answered one, allowing her to explain. She claimed her parents' pressure had driven her actions, but her excuse fell flat. I pointed out that love doesn't mean manipulating someone into sacrifices for the sake of others. Her tears didn't sway me. I ended the call and blocked her number. Undeterred, Jenna launched a smear campaign, reaching out to my friends, family, and even business contacts, trying to paint me as the villain. Her efforts, however, only solidified my decision. She had shown her true colors, and there was no going back. Despite blocking Jenna, her mother managed to reach me. She claimed Jenna only wanted to include them out of love and concern for our future. I cut through the pleasantries, making it clear: Jenna's demand for a stake in my business, followed by her ultimatum, left no room for misunderstandings. Her tone quickly turned cold, accusing me of being short-sighted and unwilling to compromise. I stood firm, ended the call, and blocked her number too. Next came the wave of mutual friends. Jenna wasted no time spinning a false narrative, painting me as controlling and ungrateful. Friends began reaching out, confused and curious. Emily, one of them, texted, asking if I really ended the engagement over a disagreement about involving her parents in my business. I set the record straight, explaining the ultimatum and refusing to be manipulated. Screenshots of Jenna's demands silenced most, and support quickly shifted in my favor. Jenna's supporters quickly faded as people started to see the truth. Finally, Jenna herself switched to damage control. Emails and voicemails flooded in, full of tearful apologies and claims of love. She blamed her parents' influence and begged for another chance, claiming that she missed me. I didn't respond. Love, in my eyes, didn't involve manipulation or threats. Her pleas only reinforced that I had made the right choice to walk away. By the end of the week, things had quieted down. The calls and messages stopped, and I didn't hear from Jenna or her parents again. I thought it was finally over until one of my employees brought something to my attention. She told me there was a Facebook post from Jenna calling me controlling and greedy, accusing me of abandoning her before the wedding. I didn't engage but saved screenshots for the record. I reached out to Olivia, who reminded me to document everything. Fortunately, the post fizzled out without much fallout, and most people moved on. However, some of Jenna's friends who had sided with her reached out later to apologize once they heard the full story. Looking back, I realized I'd dodged a bullet. I stood my ground, protected my business, and walked away with my dignity. Jenna's attempts to smear me only made her look petty, and I was sure she was still out there trying to tell her version of events, but that wasn't my concern anymore. I had made the right choice. My business, my boundaries, and my future were all looking brighter without her.